Wrench is a little tricky because we want this part here to engage these teeth of the chuck while this part goes into the hole. Now some people I have seen try to use a chuck wrench like this, and that is totally ineffective. Instead, we're going to, and this is actually spring loaded here, that's a safety feature, so we're going to push it in like that and get those teeth to engage. Now we can crank that and put some good torque on this gear here, so that it really holds that bit tightly. We don't want the bit to slip while we're cutting. Now going back to the other parts that we need to know about, we've got the depth stop right here. So if we're drilling a hole that only goes into a predetermined depth, we can adjust this down so that it's going to stop at a certain place. Bring this other piece against the first part to see how it's moving right now. If we lock those two together, then when it comes down, that's going to hit a definite stop. Now, of course, I've got my stuff in the way so it doesn't show, but that's the idea.
No, just bring it down more.
Bring
this down more.
Oh, okay, sure.
Blind hole, you don't explain a blind hole.
There we go. Do like that, and now we'll come down and only go in a certain amount and stop, right? And you would want to adjust that ahead of time if that's what you're after. In our case, we're going to drill all the way through, so we're going to adjust this back out of the way. The other thing we can do here is we can adjust the height of this table, and that'll change the amount of drill bits going in also. So in order to do that, here's the table. Underneath here, okay. So under here is a big nut.
Let's try that again.
Okay.
All right, there we go.
You see there we got this big nut and this pin that allows the table to tilt. I'm not going to go to the trouble to pull that out right now because it's happy in there. I'm just going to leave it. But you would see the nut there and the pin there if we wanted to tilt the table one way or the other and give us an angled hole. In this case, we're sticking with a hole that's square to the surface of the board. Okay, so now one of the things we've done here ahead of time is to put a piece of scrap wood on here. This is, that way that the drill bit can finish going through our workpiece, but not go into the metal table. We're not trying to drill extra holes in the table, and a lot of times you won't be drilling over top of the existing hole in the table. There's a hole in the metal part already, but sometimes you're drilling in a different position on the table. We have to be aware of that. Another thing I could do with this handle back here, this handle is called the table locking clamp. This guy right here. Okay, table locking clamp. And as we tighten it this way, it clamps this collar around the column and would keep the table in the exact same position. So if we want to change the height of the table, we can loosen this like that, and then we have a handle on this side that allows us to raise and lower the table this way. If I crank this handle, I can raise and lower the table like that. Sometimes we have to give it a little help, and then once we've got it where we want it, we lock these guys down, especially lock this one, and then we're ready to drill. Okay, so remember the things we talked about: the switch, the feed lever. Okay, we didn't talk about that. This is a feed lever. This is the one that the drill speed is how fast it's spinning this way. The feed is how fast it's going this way. And you can see that I'm pushing on this handle. As it comes down, it brings this whole assembly downwards into the workpiece. Okay? And I'm going to make sure that I'm not in a place that if I slip, this thing will come around and whack me in the face. That's very uncomfortable. So we'll keep my face back a little bit and go ahead and drill it like this. Let's drill this hole. Wait for it to stop. Now I can reach in, get my clamp, and here we have a nice hole all the way through the piece of wood. So a couple of things we'll be aware of. We've got different types of clamps we use commonly. This one, very creatively, is called a C-clamp. And then we've got the parallel jaw screw clamp, sometimes just called a screw clamp. This one's a little more complicated, but can be very helpful. As we turn these handles like this, you can see I'm tightening it, go the other way, I'm loosening it. So I could use that the same way to clamp this in place, like that. just like the C-clamp did a minute ago. I could do that, clamp it down. Now,
You may want to mention they should never hold something. They should always use a clamp.
indeed, it's going to be really important to use a clamp every time. Also, if you notice the material spins this way, let's see that again real quick. It's spinning across the front this way. You see how when I turn it off, you can see it slowing down. It's coming this way. If this bites into a piece of material and somehow the clamp isn't strong, the material is going to swing this way, right? So if we're using a long piece of wood, say if for some reason we were drilling into this long thing here, and I drilled like that, the end could swing all the way around like this and do some real damage to somebody standing out in front of the drill press. So if you're drilling a long piece of wood, you want to take your long side and put it off to the left. Okay, if it's a piece that has that possibility, put the long side off to the left of the drill bit, and you'll be best off. Okay, so let's make sure we know the names of these bits and these tools. Before, as I said, we mentioned the chuck wrench. We take this piece out. We can see this is called a twist drill. It looks like a twisted piece of metal. Let me get a bigger one for you. It really illustrates the nature. There's a really big twist drill. Even though we don't use big twist drills that much, this is the biggest one we have in the shop. And you can see that's a twisted thing. The cutting action's actually happening up here, where this edge and this edge cut the wood or the material. And then these flutes carry the material up out of the hole. So that's a cutting edge right there where my fingernail is, and that one over there also is cutting edge. So that's the twist drill. Another one we use really commonly is the spade bit. It has a shape kind of like a spade shovel, this square shape across here, and like the other one, it's got this beveled edge here. It does the cutting there and there. This kind of a bit can only be used for wood. The twist drill could be used in wood, metal, or plastic, but this one is strictly for wood. And this one is kind of tends to be a larger diameter of the ones we use. The twist drills we tend to use from about 1/16 of an inch up to a 1/2 inch diameter. These generally go from about 1/2 inch up to 1 1/4 inch, and then we get into bigger ones after that. But let's go ahead and see this one work. If you'll notice on the top here, there are flats, like flat surfaces here. It's like a hexagonal shape. And when we
Hold it, whoop, like that, yep. I lost it, there we go.
when we go to put that in the drill bit, we want to make it so the 3 jaws of the chuck are gripping 3 opposite sides of the hexagonal shape. So we'll go ahead and slip that up in here. And I can tighten it by hand first and make sure I've got those jaws lining up properly on the flats. And then I'll tighten it with the chuck wrench like we did before. Nice and tight. And make sure that my clamp is tight on the piece of wood, and we should be ready to drill. Do that again. Now, if you run into a situation where this is really hard to push in there, or it's starting to scorch the wood and smoke and stuff like that, you've got a dull bit. You want to make sure that you're using a good sharp bit every time. If there's a problem with that, go find the teacher, me, and we'll deal with it appropriately. Okay? So
Let's look at the bottom of that. Did it blow out at all?
A little bit. If we were trying to keep this really smooth on the bottom, we might have gone part way through and then come back the other way. Generally, when you've got it clamped up against another piece of wood, you get a pretty clean exit wound, but in this case, it looks like it broke out a little bit more than we might
So
like.
pretty side up.
Yeah, pretty side up. Good point.